Welcome to Walwise on Wire. Today we're talking about Akmal's call for Barisan Nasional to maintain strong opposition status in Sabah. So let's just get right into it. We've got this really powerful, very public directive coming from Dato Akmal. He's the Barisan Nasional and United Malay's National Organization youth chief. And this isn't just some casual suggestion. It's a clear command, a directive about their entire political identity in Sabah right now.
It really is. He's explicitly told the state chapter, look, you must actively choose to stay in the opposition.
It's an incredible thing to say out loud, isn't it?
It's an extraordinary move. It completely flies in the face of, political gravity. The normal instinct for any party is to find a way back into power. Any way possible, even with compromises. But here you have Akmal staking the coalition's whole future on this principle of being in the opposition. He's saying they need to work alongside parties like Parti Warisan and Perikatan Nasional to be a real check on the state government.
So the mission statement is just. It's radical. Reject power for now. Embrace being the opposition, and use that time to do some deep, probably painful internal reform. What's the core political logic behind this self-imposed exile?
Well, the logic comes entirely from his reading of public perception. That's what makes it so, I think, insightful. Akmal looked at the election results and basically concluded the public didn't just vote against Barisan Nasional. He believes the public wants them in the opposition, that the voters have these high expectations for the coalition to actually fix itself from the ground up.
And you can only do that from the outside.
You can only do that outside of power. Exactly. The argument is you can't fix the very problems the public rejected you for while you're also trying to run the government.
You have to earn that trust back by being a watchdog, not by, pulling the levers of influence.
Yeah, precisely. He sees the opposition role not as some kind of waiting room for the next election. He sees it as an active mandatory duty. Barisan Nasional has to become a powerful, effective opposition, to be the voice for the people, especially those who feel ignored, and to really scrutinize every single policy coming out of the Sabah state government.
So it's a shift from being the dominant voice to being the critical mirror.
That's a great way to put it.
And the success of this whole thing, it all hangs on one condition he laid out, right?
Yeah.
One non-negotiable point.
Yes. And it's that Barisan Nasional has to stop trying to spin the loss. They must, in his words, face and accept their electoral failure, and then commit publicly to fixing their own systemic problems.
It's not just about winning next time. It's about fixing the core DNA of the party itself.
That's the key phrase right there, fixing the core DNA. Akmal sees this whole Sabah strategy as a potential blueprint, a blueprint for revival across the whole country. The thinking is, if they can actually pull this off, this painful process of reform and rebuilding trust at the state level,
then they have a credible story to tell at the federal level.
Exactly. It establishes credibility. The promise becomes simple. We heard your rejection, we did the hard work, and now we can be trusted again.
That's a really compelling vision of strategic patience, but to really feel the weight of what Akmal is demanding, this accepting failure part. We need the context, the brutal context. What exactly happened in that election?
Right. We have to look at the 17th Sabah state election. The numbers here explain why such a radical call was even necessary. Barisan Nasional had what you could argue was its most crushing defeat in decades. This wasn't a small stumble. It was a fundamental rejection by voters.
Okay, so let's put some numbers on that rejection.
Yeah.
They fielded candidates in 45 seats, right? They're trying to get a major foothold.
45 seats, and they came away with a victory in only 6. 6 out of 45. That huge gap is the reason Akmal is insisting on something so drastic. The voters sent a message that was impossible to ignore.
6 seats out of 45. I mean, when you just hear those numbers, it validates everything he's saying. Logically, the only path forward after that has to be a unified, dedicated rebuilding from the opposition benches. What else could you do?
That is the logical, principled conclusion, yes. But, and this is a huge but, this is where political reality crashes right into that principle.
Okay. This is where the whole narrative gets turned on its head.
This is where you see that classic tension, the ideal of reform versus the raw need for political survival. Despite winning only those 6 seats, and despite their own youth chief's very clear demand for a principled opposition role, Barisan Nasional accepted a crucial position inside the Sabah cabinet.
Wait, hold on. After their worst defeat in decades, they still took a ministerial post.
They did.
That immediately compromises the entire opposition mandate he was just talking about. Who was it? What was the job?
It was Jaffrey Arifin. He's the Barisan Nasional United Malay's National Organization Assemblyman for Sukau, and he was appointed as the Sabah Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Environment.
Wow. Okay, so if your whole new brand is being a strong, uncompromised opposition, how do you do that when you're also holding a powerful portfolio like tourism, culture, and environment? That ministry literally controls state policy on resources, on economic development. He's sitting inside the administration, not outside checking it.
And that's the structural problem at the very heart of this, isn't it? The acceptance of that single post suggests that maybe the party finds it structurally impossible to be a full-time opposition. Think about it. For a coalition like Barisan Nasional, their history is built on controlling resources, on state appointments, on patronage networks that reward leaders.
So being completely frozen out of power is an existential threat to how they even function.
It's an existential threat. So the challenge isn't just about political optics. It's institutional. Akmal is calling for this ideological pivot, but the party's DNA, its decades-long structure, might just be incapable of making that change.
So the need to keep those patronage networks alive, even with just one seat at the table, that might be stronger than the strategic need to rebuild public trust.
That's the crux of it. Accepting that cabinet post keeps financial channels open, it keeps them politically relevant, it stops the grassroots structure from totally collapsing. But the price you pay is the immediate delegitimization of Akmal's entire reform project.
It creates this huge disconnect. The leadership is focused on survival through influence, while the reformers are demanding survival through integrity.
And when a party talks about accepting failure but then immediately starts negotiating for a piece of the pie, what is the public supposed to think?
Right. It just looks like political window dressing, not real change. It looks like they're just trying to hold on to whatever privilege they can.
Exactly.
And what does this do to their potential partners in opposition? Party Barisan and Perikatan Nasional. Akmal called for a united front, but now one of the key players has a guy on the government's payroll.
It severely undermines the credibility of the entire opposition bloc in Sabah. The second Barisan Nasional took that portfolio, they became partly responsible for the administration's policies. It just muddies the waters so much. Any unified effort is compromised from the start. It creates friction right when you need to show unity and strength.
So let's bring this back to the bigger picture, to the national stage. If Sabah was meant to be the test case, the blueprint for a federal comeback, what message does this contradiction send to the rest of the Malaysian public?
I think it just reinforces that widespread public cynicism, that feeling that the major political parties, especially one with a history of dominance like Barisan Nasional, can't really change. When the youth chief calls for a profound shift and the state leadership immediately compromises for one single position, the takeaway for a national voter might just be that the old habits, the old instinct to seek power at any cost are still in charge.
So this internal struggle is now just completely out in the open in Sabah. You have the reformers pushing for genuine opposition versus the pragmatists clinging to any influence they can get. It really sets up a huge question for the party, doesn't it? Is one cabinet seat worth more than the long-term credibility Akmal says is essential for their national survival?
It forces you to ask a really tough question about their political longevity. If their structure is so dependent on holding office that they can't survive even a short time in the wilderness, then Akmal's vision might be completely unattainable from the start. That one ministerial post suggests their capacity for principled withdrawal is basically zero.
So we're left with this core tension. Akmal's powerful reformist call for principled opposition after a disaster, and it's in direct conflict with the state chapter immediately taking a powerful cabinet post. This dynamic is going to define their path forward, not just in Sabah, but maybe for the whole coalition.
And that single cabinet post becomes the ultimate test. You have to consider, given the sheer scale of the rejection from voters, just 6 seats. Was this move a desperate but maybe necessary calculation, just to ensure the party's administrative survival? Or does it just prove, once and for all, that the party establishment is inherently incapable of embracing the kind of deep, fundamental change their own youth chief is calling for? The answer to that will define Barisan Nasional for the next decade.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.